Hello? Lankavatara Sutra, Part 9. Without much further ado. Alright. Mahamati. As for the lineage of Pratyeka Buddha realization, upon hearing about the realization of different causal conditions, the hair on their entire body stands on end, and they weep tears of sorrow, and they avoid conditions or any attachments to them. But when they hear about the different bodies and powers and different transformations involving combination and separation, their minds are captivated. Anyone whose understanding belongs to the lineage of the Pratyeka Buddha realization is taught in accordance with the Pratyeka Buddha path. And this is what characterizes the lineage of Pratyeka Buddha realization. Mahamati. As for the lineage of Tathagata realization, there are 4 kinds. The lineage of realization concerned with the reality of dharmas, the lineage of realization concerned with the non-reality of dharmas, the lineage of realization concerned with the attainment of the personal realization of Buddha knowledge, and the lineage of realization concerned with the splendors of external Buddha lands. Mahamati. When someone hears these 4 described one after the other, as well as the inconceivable realm, whereby their body, possessions, and the world around them are merely perceptions of their own mind, and they are not terrified or alarmed. This is what characterizes membership in the lineages of Tathagata realization. Mahamati. The indeterminate lineage includes those who are instructed in these 3 lineages, but who enter according to one teaching and succeed according to another. Mahamai, even if they are at the stage of initial purification where lineages are established, if they establish themselves beyond the projectional stage, and they purify the habit energy of their passions through the personal realization of the receptoria consciousness, and they see that dharmas have no self. Even if they are Shakyakas, dwelling in the bliss of Samadhi, they will attain the glorious body of Tathagata. The Bhagavan then repeated this teaching in verse. The goal of finding the stream, returning once more and not at all, or reaching the birthless state, are all confusions of the mind. Sometimes I teach 3 paths, sometimes 1, and sometimes none, for fools and those of little wisdom, and the wise who dwell apart. The teaching of ultimate truth transcends all dualities. For those who dwell in projectionist realms, why create 3 paths? Dhyanas in the boundless states, samadhis devoid of form, cessation of perception, these don't exist where there's only monde. As for Ankatakas, Mahamati, if not Ankatakas, who in this world would liberate them? There are 2 kinds of Ankatakas, Mahamati. Those who forsake good roots, and those whose vows regarding others are without limits. Mahamati, what is meant by forsaking good roots? This refers to slandering the Bodhisattva canon and the falsely claiming that it is not in accord with the teachings of liberation in the sutras or in the Vajnana. Because they forsake the good roots, they don't enter nirvana. Next are bodhisattvas whose practice includes the vow not to enter nirvana until all beings enter nirvana. However, Mahamati, what they mean by entering nirvana is characterized by not entering nirvana. Thus, they too followed this Inkataka path. Mahamati asked, Bhagavan, then which of these paths never enter nirvana? The Buddha replied, Mahamati, Bodhisattva Inkatakas. They know that everything is already in nirvana. Thus, they never enter nirvana. This is not true of those Inkatakas who forsake their good roots. Mahamati, even though they forsake their good roots, through the power of the Tathagatas, at some point their good roots reappear. And how so? Because Tathagatas do not forsake any being. That is why Bodhisattva Inkatakas do not enter nirvana. Moreover, Mahamati, Bodhisattvas should be well acquainted with the three modes of reality. And what are the three modes of reality? Imagined reality, dependent reality, and perfected reality. Mahamati, imagined reality arises from appearances. And how does imaginary reality arise from appearances? Mahamati, as the objects and forms of dependent reality appear. Attachments results in two kinds of imagined reality. These are what the Tathagatas, the Arhats, and the fully enlightened ones describe as attachment to appearance and attachment to name. Attachment to appearance involves attachment to external and internal entities, while attachment to name involves attachment to the individual and shared characteristics of these external and internal entities. These are two kinds of imagined reality. What serves as the ground and objective support from which they arise is dependent reality. And what is perfected reality? This is the mode that is free from name or appearance or from projection. It is attained by Buddha knowledge and is in the realm where the personal realization of Buddha knowledge takes place. This perfected reality and the heart of the Tathagata Garbha. Buddha then repeated the meaning of this in verse. Name and appearance and projection, the characteristics to modes of reality, correct knowledge and suchness, these characterize the perfected mode. I did a good job. I guess I do believe in myself about that. That was very good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mahamati, this is what is known as the teaching of how to view what characterizes the five dharmas and the modes of reality. This is the realm where the personal realization of Buddha knowledge takes place and which you and other bodhisattvas should cultivate. Furthermore, Mahamati, bodhisattvas should become adept at examining the two kinds of phenomena that have no self. And what are these two kinds of phenomena that have no self? Neither beings nor dharmas have a self. And what does it mean that beings have no self? The assemblages of the skandhas and the dhatus or the anyatas arise from ignorance, karma, and desire, and includes neither a self nor anything that belongs to a self. As the grasping and attachment of such senses as the eyes to form gives rise to consciousness, bodies, houses, and the world of objects that are projections of one's own mind are fabricated and manifested from one's own projections. They change and disappear every moment, like a river or a seed or a candle or the wind or a cloud, like a restless monkey attached to impurities, like a flag, and unstable, like a wind-blown fire. And they move like a water wheel through life after life, and the bodily form after bodily form, impeded by the heavy energy without beginning, like figure. Am I in the right place? Yes. Like figures produced by some sort of magic trick or spell or mechanical device. To be skilled in the knowledge of such appearances means to know that beings have no self. And what does it mean to know that dharmas have no self? It means to be aware that the self-existence of the skandhas, dhatus, and anyatas is imaginary, that the skandhas, dhatus, and anyatas are the fruit of a self or anything that belongs to a self, and the skandhas, dhatus, and anyatas are assemblages tied to desire and karma, and that they arise from the interplay of conditions, but are themselves passive. And all their dharmas are like this. Through the power of imagination, fools give rise to erroneous projections devoid of individual or shared consciousness, the five dharmas, and the modes of reality. Mahamati. Bodhisattvas should become adept at seeing no self in anything at all. Bodhisattvas who become adept at seeing no self in dharmas soon gain an insight into the freedom from projections that characterizes the initial bodhisattva stage. And they delight in examining the characteristics of such awareness. As they continue their steady advance, they go beyond the ninth stage to the Dharma cloud stage, where they create huge lotus flowers decorated with countless jewels resembling the jeweled thrones upon which they sit and practice in this realm of illusionary existence, and where they are joined by bodhisattvas of similar attainment, and their retinue. We still haven't learned this word. Retinues. From every Buddha land, that they get us calm and anoint their foreheads, just as a Cakravartin. I am so happy with speaking English these days. Anoints the forehead of the crowned prince. Having gone past the bodhisattva stage, they attain the personal realization of the Brahma Buddha knowledge. And because they see no self in any dharma, they acquire the incomparable dharma body of a Tathagata. This is what no self in dharmas means. You and the other bodhisattvas should cultivate this. But change the vocabulary words. Small request. Mahamati then asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, please teach us about assertion and denial, so that I and the other bodhisattvas can avoid these two pernicious views and quickly attain unexcelled and complete enlightenment. And once enlightened, we may avoid eternalistic assertions and nihilistic denials and not slander the true Dharma. Upon hearing Mahamati Bodhisattva's request, the Buddha replied in verse, assertions and denials don't exist where there is only mind, and as for the body, the world, and possessions, unable to see these are mind, and bereft of any wisdomful assert and deny. The Buddha then explained the meaning of this verse, told Mahamati, there are four kinds of assertion regarding what is not existent. And what are the four? They include assertions of a non-existent characteristic, assertions of a non-existent view, assertions of a non-existent cause, and assertions of a non-existent existence. These are the four kinds of assertion. As for denial, this means denying what is asserted because it cannot be grasped or observed. This is what is meant by assertion and denial. Mahamati. As for the assertion of a non-existent characteristic, this refers to becoming attached to a non-existent individual or shared characteristic amongst the skandhas, dhatus, or the anyatas as being like this and not other than this. This is what is meant by the assertion of a non-existent characteristic. Such assertions of a non-existent characteristics are the result of attachment to the habit energy of different mistaken projections without the beginning. Mahamati. As for the assertion of a non-existent view, this refers to asserting a view of a self person, a being, a life, or an individuality among such entities as the skandhas, the tattwas, and the anyatas. This is what is meant by the assertion of a non-existent view. Mahamati. As for the assertion of a non-existent cause, this refers to the original consciousness, which does not arise from causes that would render it unreal or illusionary, and which does not subsequently arise by itself, but only arises after eyes, forms, light, and memory arise, and once it arises, it ceases. Once it exists, it ceases. As Alright, we'll finish just a bit more. This is what is meant by the assertion of a non-existent cause. Mahamati. As for the assertion of a non-existent existence, this refers to attachment to assertions of the existence of what is uncreated, such as space, cessation, or nirvana. These neither exist nor do not exist, and any dharma that either exists or does not exist is like the perception of a rabbit horn, or horse horn, or a strand of hair. Neither exists nor doesn't exist, and this is what is meant by assertions of a non-existent existence. Assertions and denials are the projection of fools unskilled in examining what are nothing but perception of their own minds. This is not true of the wise. Therefore, you should practice avoiding the pernicious views of assertion and denial.